Today we meet an artist whose hands carry the wisdom of generations. Hone Bailey is dedicated to preserving and sharing the ancestral practices of Maori weaving. Through his weaving, teaching, and global presence on social media, Hone connects people to the natural world, reminding us of the sacred responsibility to care for the resources that sustain our art, our culture, and our identity. We are deeply grateful to the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture for their generous support and contributions to making this episode possible, and for their commitment to uplifting Indigenous artists and traditions. This is Beyond the Art with Hone Bailey. Welcome back to Beyond the Art. I'm your host, Crabo Montflynn, with my co-host, Joe Williams, and today's guest, Hone Bailey. Welcome to the show.
Kia ora. Thank you for having me.
Today, we're honored to welcome an artist whose practice bridges ancestral knowledge, fiber arts, and the digital age. Hone, thank you again for joining us. Let's start from the beginning. Growing up in the and forgive me, I'm a Dakota, so this is a
it's all good.
We might need a language lesson in this show.
Yes. So, can you talk about where you grew up? Can you talk about the environment that shaped your path to being an artist?
Yes, I grew up in a small community called Koromatua, or Temple View is another name for it. And I lived in quite a very tight-knit community. And artists weren't really a thing in my community. However, everyone was creative and everyone had a skill, and you'd go to certain people who knew how to do certain things, builders, knitters, seamstresses. Pretty much everyone had a skill, and so I grew up seeing that, although it was never really spoken about as like that's you're an artist, or people just did it to help one another, and they all had regular jobs. But I knew that I was creative. So my mum, she used to sew everything and, upholster all of our furniture. And, every so often we'd go through a refurbishing of the house and clothes. And, that was a big part of my experience growing up, and therefore, it became normal for me to see those things. And, growing up, I just followed it. I was drawn to it, and I knew that I loved it. So it all started there.
Well, being a Maori and being Indigenous, most of our teachings come from our elders and our environment. What lessons from them continue to guide your work today?
I think it's the values that I grew up with, which are quite different to today. I grew up with very strict parents who, they were known in my community, my mum especially, for being, the mean lady. Everyone was scared of her, still is. But, the values that were taught to us quite, and very firmly, were taught very firmly to us, still, stick with me today. Their values of respect, of respect in many ways, not only to people, but to things, to space, to community. And so, these things really, shape my, both my personal life, but also my art practice. And, I hold on to them. As a kid, I used to think, you don't want to follow, those things. But as I've grown older, I've learned to appreciate them and see the wisdom in those things that were taught to me.
For the listeners who might not be familiar, what's the significance of traditional Maori weaving, and how did you come to embrace this as your creative voice?
Yeah, so the significance of Maori weaving is that they carry our stories and our histories, like other art forms, carving, for example. But not only just within the finished or the finished treasures or taonga, as we say, or heirlooms, but it's also within the practice of creating them. There lies a lot of wisdom and understanding of how we should operate in this world, how we move through this world. I came into weaving through kōhanga reo. Kōhanga reo are Maori language preschools, I think is the equivalent, that arose in the 70s and 80s to help revitalize the language. And so my mum had great insight to enroll me into these programs since I was about 3 years old. And so it was through my attendance in kōhanga reo and also in a immersion school, elementary school and intermediate, that I was able to interact more with our culture, including through the language, but also with performing arts and song. And through the performing arts and the wearing of traditional clothing, sort of rose my own relationship with these taonga, or these treasures. So yeah, it arose from there, and I just knew that I was good at it and that I wanted to do it. You know, I saw, as a little kid, I knew like they had value. And they weren't, at that time, they weren't seen often. You know, not a lot of people had them. So when we did see them, you know, I remember feeling like, wow, they're so beautiful. You know, maybe one day I'll get to own my own. Or, you know, I didn't think that, you know, I'd even be able to weave my own. You know, that's something that happened over time. But yeah, it sort of stemmed from there.
Well, you're a graduate of Toihoukura School of Maori Art and Design. What was your time like at Toihoukura like, and any powerful moments you carry with you from your study there and incorporate into your artistry and weaving?
Yeah, so a little background. Prior to going to the school, I moved to New York and wanted to, you know, pursue any skill regarding, you know, clothing construction or, you know, these art forms. But when I arrived in New York, the schools had sort of moved away from this, and it's more the design side. So I wasn't really fulfilled there. Also, it was really hard to live in New York. But I got wind from a friend back home in Aotearoa, who her name is Jojo. I had told her, you know, like, things aren't working out here and I'm not happy. She's like, oh, you should move back to Toihoukura, and it's a Maori art school, and you can go there. Also, you know, there's kapahaka, so performing arts groups, our traditional performing arts, which was a big passion of mine. So I was like, okay. And within 2 weeks, I moved back. So I ended up attending Toihoukura, and it was the best decision that I could have made in my development as a weaver. And I think it was mainly just the environment of being with other Maori. So, you know, that's not a common thing, you know, for spaces to exist where, you know, Maori can be Maori and practice our culture and share our culture and through art forms. So at this school, there's many art forms that are practiced, And so we all share studio spaces within a larger area together, which was beautiful. And no matter what art form we were, that allowed an opportunity for us to learn from each other and really share our own individual gifts and passions and voices. And so, we were also taught by renowned artists, who themselves not only are artists, and this is the other thing, as an Indigenous artist, you're not just an artist. You are involved in community within our tribal groups, right, and so much more. The art is just a small component of that, which is beautiful, but also, it's a big responsibility too. But it was a magical space, and I grew immensely in my time there. It's just once I entered that space, I felt like, okay, I can be me. I can do, the things that I've always wanted to do, the things that I love, and share my own individual view and I guess not angle, but perspective on weaving, traditional weaving.
Coming into your own and
yes, yes.
So you blend traditional Maori weaving with some Western textile practices that are adopted from Maori culture.
Yeah.
How do you balance those worlds in your work?
I am very intuitive in my practice. I follow my intuition, and if I feel like I need to, touch on a particular art form. So within Maori weaving and also these adopted crafts, there are many. There are so many. So we have basket weaving, traditional clothing making. We have the tukutuku panels. We have mat making. We have whāriki, we call it. But there's so much within the weaving curriculum, I guess you could say. And so in order for me to, keep my hands and my mind remembering each of these techniques and skills, I have to, visit them often and keep things moving from, one type of weaving to another.
Right.
I could just stick with one, but, the knowledge that I've, received over these years is valuable to me, and I don't want to lose it, and I want to honor it. I want to honor the legacy from which these things have been passed on to me. And so, it's important that I do sort of bounce, from one art form to the other, and those include the sewing or stitching that was adopted as well. I think I do a pretty good job. The other side to it is, because I do this as a profession, this is how I make my living, the commissions and that side of things is important in terms of what I can put my hands on at the time. But I am pretty fortunate to have enough inquiries to be able to choose, what I want to do, what I want to work on. So at the moment, or, so far it's been pretty easy, but that's not to say it could change, maybe, people will at one point just want one thing. But for now, I'm lucky that, I get a lot of inquiries for many different kinds of things, and I can just say, yes to this one. Yep, I'm ready to do this now. I'm going to do this, and then bounce from.
Well, your work is absolutely stunning and beautiful, and weaving, Indigenous weaving, be it whatever, is more than a technique. It's deeply spiritual, connected to the individual and their culture. Can you speak on that relationship between the natural world and your art?
Yeah, they are one. And I think when you're learning, you can get away with, not having such a close relationship. And at that time you're building that relationship. But the more that you do it, and, as any relationship, the more that you give it attention and care and nurture it, the closer it becomes. And so, for me at this point in my journey, my view is that they are one. They are intertwined. You can't engage with one without engaging in the other.
True.
And that's much needed for us today. Our land is the source of our mana, our essence as Indigenous people.
Very true.
So it is so important that we, these practices actually, they bind us to our natural world, to our environment. And there's a beauty in that. But as Indigenous people, we all know that, these things are not easily accessed today. And so, for a lot of weavers, it's not so straightforward, and people have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to, access, their land or these resources. So, a weaver's journey is long, to be able to get to a point where they can weave freely, because they need to build relationships with people in order to access certain resources, or they need to build relationships with land. And for a lot of our people, we don't live within our tribal area. A lot do, but there are a lot that don't. And so that can, create even more barriers. But for me, it's so important. And I just feel very fortunate that, I can do this, that I'm able to, because it's actually really hard.
Right. Yeah. What's one material that you love working with that holds a lot of meaning to you, or that you have a story about?
We have so many materials, but my natural, or my what drew me to weaving first is the fiber. It's called muka. Muka is the fiber of the harakeke, or New Zealand flax. And traditionally, this was used to make our clothing, and it can look like rope, but in the hands of a weaver, it can become very soft and warm. And so this fiber is what kept my ancestors through a very cold climate, in a cold environment. And so I've always loved muka. This is my fiber of choice, because I started off, doing clothing, both modern clothing and traditional clothing. And I just think it's a material that's undervalued and underutilized. For a long time, it was used industrially in New Zealand for making all kinds of textiles, but then fell into disuse. But we as Maori have been using it, for hundreds of years, and it's just such a beautiful fiber, beautiful material, and basically anything can be made out of it. And when we access museums and see artifacts, really we are tapping into a whole nother level of weaving that we are not yet close to these days. But, our ancestors were weaving all kinds of things from this fiber, from shoes to modern clothing to purses. And so, our ancestors were very innovative and very, what's the word? They explored all kinds of avenues with the things that they knew how to do and the things that they picked up from Europeans. So,
very resourceful.
Yeah, very, and yeah, that's great that you say that, because that's one of the main things that I love about it. Weaving is about resourcefulness. It's about being innovative and creative, and you don't need to go buy anything.
Right.
Everything's here. The land provides everything.
Yeah, it's very true. I think that's true to every indigenous culture around the world.
Yeah.
We survived with what's around us.
Yes.
We didn't have to mass produce. We took what was given to us by the earth, Mother Earth, and then gave back as well, which kind of leads me to a question. What do you think people misunderstand or overlook about Maori weaving, and also the difference of teaching other cultures and indigenous people like myself and Joe that come from Turtle Island, and I'm Cherokee and Delaware, versus Maori, and distinguishing, between Polynesian overall or Hawaiian or Tongan and Samoan, how Maori is indicative to itself, and teaching the non-native about Maori weaving and its importance and value and the difference it brings.
Wow. Okay. So
that's a lot.
No. Yeah. I mean, there's many ways that I could answer this, but my instinct is to answer them both at the same time. And one misconception, even within our own selves, our own culture, is that Maori weaving is unique, or is only practiced by us, or these techniques are unique to us. And yes, while we do have many techniques that are unique to us, we also share many techniques with many other indigenous peoples around the world. And that, to me, is amazing. That, to me, shows that these technologies or practices were shared and that there were no barriers.
Right.
There's
a connection, a connectivity between indigenous cultures.
Yeah. I think there was a misconception that because, that indigenous peoples are isolated, and, we weren't isolated. We, navigated the Pacific. We probably navigated beyond the Pacific, and shared technologies and practices. One, for example, in this last project, I made these tukutuku panels here in Hawaii, and I was able to make them, the traditional way, using materials that are here, which are essentially the same. And the dye sources, such as this mud we call paru, it's an iron-rich mud. These practices were done throughout the Pacific and also wider. So I'd say, in interacting with other peoples, other cultures, we're able to see the common thread within us all. And yes, we have our own stories, our own genealogies associated with these practices, but I think, it's beautiful to have, that common connection, or things that just affirm to you that, hey, we're kin.
Yep.
And I think that's beautiful. That's something that not other people don't get to experience.
And I think that is so important now in today's environment and culture, that, indigenous people come together and show a more unified force and a collective, and that we do have overlapping shared cultures and history. We sailed the world before those from Western cultures said they discovered our lands.
Yes.
we
Yes.
we sailed the world and walked in various parts of the globe before
Yes.
discovery happened.
Yes,
And there's a
exactly.
connectivity that continues today. And I think if we share that amongst ourselves, there'd be more of a binding force for people to
Yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is such a beautiful experience to, meet people and then find these connections, and then you sort of look at each other differently. You're like, oh my gosh, where? And I always call people like cousin or brother or sister. There is that sense of kinship or family, and they're affirmed through these practices that we share.
Absolutely. Yeah.
This really brings us into this next question, and you have this beautiful social media presence. It's bold,
Mm.
it's informative. What inspired you to bring your work online and to share it with the world?
Oh, that's a good question. I really started this. I really started this recording myself um, for my own, I guess, family or perhaps future posterity, which I don't have yet. Um, in my own journey as a weaver, and discovering my own ancestors and their stories of weaving, their stories as weavers, which I didn't know. Um, I thought, one day I'm going to be an ancestor, and will my descendants know what I did and what I loved? In my own search of these stories, there really wasn't anything recorded other than people's recollections, which slowly emerged. Like, they weren't at the forefront of people's minds when I asked. They emerged over time. And I don't want my life and my work to sort of fall to the wayside, and for my descendants to have to go through this journey of reconnecting again. So I thought, I'm going to record the things that I do, and for as a journal, so that whoever it is will know. I have everything here for them. Notes and videos. We're lucky to have videos.
Right.
A video is much easier to learn than a written diary entry. So I'm like, I'm going to use the tools that I have to record these things and document my passion, what I love, and that it is within us. It's within all of us.
Right.
And so it started from there. And so I just, back then, so it was like 2013, back then, people weren't really doing that, especially like Maori people. I didn't see anyone doing it, so I started doing that, and it's been a long time. What was the other thing that I just thought of? Also, in my own journey in sort of connecting to weaving, it's taken me many years to learn the things that I've learnt, and long pathways to find or to learn certain techniques, and spanning years from the time that I'm like, okay, I want to learn this, and then years later I finally learn it.
Right.
So we never had YouTube.
Yeah.
YouTube wasn't a thing. But
Has there been any really surprising messages or connections that have come from people around the globe that seen your work online and really providing an essence or a reflection to you about your own work?
Yeah. No, there's always, messages of gratitude and appreciation for sharing. And I think one of the main things that maybe I wasn't even aware of is that already within ourselves as Indigenous people, there is a barrier. There's a fear. There is, it's very confronting to reconnect to, our culture. For many who come from families that have become disconnected, and I would consider my family, and my upbringing to be one. To come from that background or that experience. So one of the main types of messages is just appreciation and people expressing how beautiful it is to just see it, to watch it. And it allows them to, if you imagine sort of being a child and watching your grandmother, if you did have a grandmother that did things. I didn't. I didn't have a grandmother that, I could just sit and watch doing these things. But, my videos are kind of made so you're kind of a spectator. Like you could be like a kid, watching, your family weaving these things. And there's a comfort in that. It's safe,
Yeah.
It's not expecting anything of you, but just simply to be in that space and observe. And that is a huge sort of it sort of just removes this imaginary barrier. I shouldn't say imaginary, invisible barrier. It is a real barrier within. And watching it allows people to, sort of just become comfortable with being in that space. And that's the first step, is feeling comfortable in cultural spaces.
True.
And hopefully it opens the doors for them to sort of, actually go into those spaces, step into that space physically. So that has sort of like, that understanding has switched the way in which I started making my videos, and that, that's what I'm thinking, imagining myself as a child, just watching, how you would do if you had family that were doing it, and you're just sort of like there observing, and
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said earlier about being an artist. You have this responsibility to community as well, and so your posts often feel like these mini education sessions. And so do you see your role as sort of a combination of being an artist and an educator?
Yeah, definitely an educator. I feel strongly about that, but I myself, as I in terms of like what we term an educator today, like teaching a class, like I have a hard time with that. Like the kind of teaching I like is we're just working, we're just we're just in the space together, and like I'm doing it. Okay, follow along. Just join in. That to me comes more naturally, because that's how I learn too, or that's how I have learned. It's not, and I guess it's a little old school too, going back to the way that, my childhood is like, you just watch, you absorb. There's no asking questions. There's no interrupting. There's no like, you just sit there, you watch, you listen, and you then, just slowly pick it up. So I resonate with that kind of learning, and therefore that's kind of the way in which I feel comfortable sharing. I'm not good with words. I'm not good with like articulating myself through language, oral language, but
And it also provides those that are watching freedom of creativity too. Instead of being so strict, you have to do it this way.
Yeah.
That the part of their DNA and creativeness is incorporated into it as well.
Yeah.
And that they
Yes.
understand that it's part of your DNA and your environment and your culture, and you're a part of that. You're not
Yes.
just something that's dictated to, you know?
Yeah. It's not a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
This is much more.
Right.
And there's so many components involved. And I hope that one day that I can be a wise teacher and be able to, you know, like how you imagine, you know, masters of any craft being, and, you know, just teaching with as little words as possible, but very profound and very deep. Like, I hope one day I can attain that. But at the moment, I'm still working on that, you know, and mastery comes from within too. It comes from, you know, a discipline, discipline.
What do you hope non-Maori audiences take away from encountering your work? And tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about some of the current work you're working on.
Oh, okay. What do I hope that other Maori can learn from us? I will be honest. I actually don't think about other. Yeah, in making the videos, I'm not really thinking of other people, other cultures. Yes, I know that people are going to see beautiful things, but my who I am sharing with is my own people, those who are wanting to reconnect with their culture and wanting to understand their own selves. That's my first, you know, that's who I think of first. In doing so, yes, you know, everyone else who watches our culture in any context, you know, they're watching us and they're learning. And I already know people are impressed by us. You know, we have had a presence in the world regarding Indigenous issues, and you know, and I'm so grateful that we've had amazing leaders who have gone out into the world or been faces for our people in the world and been able to create or educate people on who we are and what we stand for. Right. And so that really helps, you know, because I've lived in other places. I've lived in Japan, and, you know, no matter where I go, people know what this is. You know, they know what our markings are and they know what it represents. And so I'm always received with love and, you know, what's the word? Hospitality. So, you know, for me, I already know, and us just being who we are and doing what we do and, you know, practicing our culture, people are going to be impressed and be hopefully moved to turn to their own family history, their own stories, their own, you know, practices that remind them of who they are and where they come from.
Your art speaks to protecting land and natural resources. How does your practice reflect the values of guardianship?
Oh, yeah. In many, many ways. So many ways. How? Okay, so... so let's say, like, in harvesting, you know, we have a huge responsibility to be mindful of the resources that are grown within our area, and if we use them, which we should be using them. So there is sort of this idea like, oh, just let them do their own thing, don't touch them. But actually our interaction with plants and land is important. We must be present and have that face-to-face relationship with our land and our natural resources. One, so that we know what is happening there. We have eyes on the ground. Two, as weavers, we know the practices that help to help these natural resources plants, for example, to flourish and thrive. So it may be your presence there might make you aware that there's invasive species growing or taking over, and so you can, remove them and clear them and allow for the native plants to thrive. The way that we harvest, every plant is harvested in different ways. It's harvested in different seasons, and therefore following these, we say tikanga or protocols, encourage these plants to thrive. And it's all about, ensuring that they are there for the next generations. Also teaching the next generations, what that relationship looks like, what that relationship requires us to do and know. So with each resource, there are tikanga, there are these protocols that guide us in our interactions with these natural resources to ensure that they are protected and that they continue to thrive. They've been there for many generations in some cases. Other cases, you have to reestablish them. And so, there is so much knowledge that a weaver has to learn. Right. There's so many things that they have to learn. And in learning them makes you responsible, and so that's a big thing to carry, when you're just learning. It's like you're on the job training, okay, you've learnt this now it's your responsibility to keep up with it. And it's like, oh, I didn't ask for that, I just wanted to learn how to do this. And you're like, no, when you learn this, it comes with that responsibility.
It's artistry, but also preservationist and culture, I guess, sustainability. You have to learn things like that. I mean, we give and we take, and we give back. We take, we give back. It's part of our culture as Indigenous peoples.
Can I share one more thing regarding
absolutely,
that?
Absolutely, yes. This is your show.
So when I was younger, I'm like, no, I want to learn. I want to learn as much as I can. Now that I know what learning means, when you learn something, what you're saying is, I'm taking this responsibility I'm taking on all things regarding this learning, and I'm now responsible for that. So when I am learning, or I'm offered, I'm invited in a space to learn something new, I actually have to think about it. I don't just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to learn. Like, I have to think about it and ask myself, do I have capacity, with all these other responsibilities that I've taken on over these years and learnt, do I now have a capacity to take on this new learning and this new responsibility to care for this new thing? And I'd say this comes back to also a childhood value too. Like, within my growing up, you don't take more than you can handle. You don't, ask for more things. You use what you know, and you do them really well. You make sure that you are carrying out those responsibilities as best as you can, and you don't keep asking for more knowledge, more understanding. First take care of what you know, and fulfill those responsibilities as best as you can, and then when you have space to accept more, then yes, you can. But so I don't think of it as just learning. I think of it as, this comes with great responsibility.
I think overabundance is a Western culture component. It's not Indigenous because, like you said, we take what we need, we don't take everything and pile it. We take what we need at the time.
Yes.
As a Maori artist and storyteller, tell us a little bit about some of the current projects and work that you're working on now.
Oh, So I've just finished a tukutuku project. These are panels that create the internal lining of our meeting houses. So I've just closed, that project yesterday. And what I mean by closing is when I'm making, so there's the making side of it, and then there's the recording, which for me is important. The recording of my experience and the journey, because a lot of relationships were formed and people came into that journey and shared part in that journey and the making and creation of those taonga. So, it is important for me to record these things, either through video or writing. So I'm trying to do both, transcribing the things that I've shared orally. But future projects, I have a lot of future projects, but the projects that I'm always more excited to do are projects for my family. And I haven't had a lot of time over the years to make things for my own family. Everything that I'm making goes to other people and other families, and and then my family are watching.
You're
watching
on the
me.
list.
Wow!
He's going to get you on the list.
Also, are these? Can we hang these up? Like my mom's like, so can we hang these up? I'm like, nah. And I feel bad, but again, this is my bread and butter, and so I don't have the luxury, to to be making all for myself.
Right.
So, but so I have projects for my own family, which include a cloak, or we call it kākahu, which is made of that fiber muka. And these are significant because, in certain occasions, these are used by a family to acknowledge certain people. And a few years ago, my sister passed away, and I didn't have any of these things, which we'd typically bring out, during a tangi, which is a funeral. The funerary practices, and I was not prepared and did not have these things. And so it's been on, in the back of my mind and on my schedule to make these things. And I don't, yes, in a way it does make me sad that I didn't. However, my life is just not there yet, and I don't have that luxury to do that. And that's the hard thing about being a weaver and that being my main work, is that, your work is oftentimes going to other people. So,
Right.
So I have a lot of these items or heirlooms on my list to make for my family. But I also, look forward to more opportunities to work with others and weave with others. I, for many years, wove by myself, because there was no one around. And weaving wasn't cool at the time.
Right.
Weaving wasn't a thing that, people were like, that's what old ladies do. And I'm like, well, I like old ladies, and I think it's cool. But, for a long time it wasn't, and I wouldn't go telling people like, I'm a weaver. I love weaving, so, now that, and through my Instagram, I've been able to connect with a lot of people, and, I've actually really enjoyed being able to connect with others that share the same passion and share the same journey. And so, personal and family, weaving, and then also, I don't have anything scheduled as of yet, but these things also just sort of arise, when you're a weaver. I guess when you're an artist too, things just pop up out of the blue. So yes, I do have a schedule, but things are always coming up and very spontaneous, which I love. I actually love spontaneity and
Life of a creative.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, let's do it. Yeah. So,
Are there any young weavers or creatives that you're currently mentoring or have an eye on at the moment?
yes, yes. To an extent, yes. Because I'm here in Hawaii and not in Aotearoa 24/7 or all months of the year, that does sort of put up a barrier in terms of what I'm able to do. Also, weavers are really spread out, so it does make it hard to meet with people face to face and have that that interaction that you need in order to share fully. And so for me, I'm like, when I'm sharing it all. I'm not holding back. I'm not doing like drips of knowledge. I'm like, okay, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it.
Right.
So last year I did spend a lot of time with a group of weavers in my own iwi, my own tribal group. And so that was amazing. That was beautiful. And I hope to continue doing that. And I'm actually going to be returning to Aotearoa in a few weeks. So, yeah, so any opportunity I can. However, through social media too, I'm able to just be a person that people can reach to, when they have questions or, like that, I'm like, you can ask me anything and I'll share whatever I have, so in that capacity, yes, not within my vicinity. I don't have people, within close access that can come and learn with me. However, I'm always, I'm like, if you're here, you're welcome to come by and learn and just work, just do it. So
just get to it.
yeah, and that's how I like it. Yeah.
Spontaneity. Well, what's your dream project? Something wild and big that you'd love to make happen.
Oh my gosh, that's hard. People do ask me this, and my response is, I'm already doing it. I'm already living a dream that I never thought would even be possible. And that dream is just to be weaving every day. And, I don't take that for granted. In any moment, it could be taken away from me, due to, circumstances or, people needing or wanting it or having means to be able to commission my work. So it could be gone, It's what people don't understand, and maybe my videos give a different perception. It is actually really hard to be a weaver. Also at my age, usually, when people are retired, they have the freedom to commit their lives to weaving. But, this has to be my job, and it relies on people, employing my expertise. So, so every day that I'm able to weave, that is my dream. That is that is me living a dream that far exceeds what I even thought as a young kid, wanting to do it and seeing no avenue for me to do it.
That's fantastic.
So, for me, I'm content with that. Yes, there are things that I'd love to do, but I feel like I've relinquished that to the powers that are beyond my control. And, if that happens, amazing. But if it doesn't, I am already so happy with the dream that I am already living, and that is weaving.
If you could design your own magical studio anywhere in the world,
Oh, yeah.
what would that look like?
It would probably be a traditional house. Yeah, traditional whare. And, of course, with the luxuries of modern day, living. But, I would love my studio to be a traditional whare. Not necessarily carved, but definitely all made from natural resources. And I would want to make it all myself. And having land. I don't own any land. So I'd love to own my own land where I can grow my own weaving plants and just have access to all the things that I love. Why a traditional house? Traditional houses are living and breathing, unlike modern homes. We have a lot of technology that helps that, modern houses to be alive.
Right.
But traditional homes are living and breathing, and they require, a level of knowledge of the natural world and natural resources. And so, I've always dreamed of that and, what it would be like. And I think it would be amazing. I think Absolutely. It would be so cool. So that is what my dream studio would be.
I think we both get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our own cultures, yeah. Well, you work with your hands quite a bit and a lot in creating your artwork. What's your go-to creative music while you're weaving, or inspiration and keeps you motivated while you're creating?
Yeah, I actually don't listen to music much. Yeah, I don't listen to music. And when I'm working, it's actually very distracting for me.
You like it solidly quiet? No interference?
Like either quiet or I do listen to TV shows. So talking, I like hearing talking. So bouncing back to my childhood, we grew up just listening to, our parents, telling stories. And I used to and I still do. I still love it. It just brings me into a very calm place. And I love hearing the stories of old and, how things used to be and, stories of my ancestors, So, TV shows for me are sort of similar. I like hearing narratives and, if I'm watching a series like that can last, hours. So one series is 8 hours. That's only one day. I can go through a series in one day, but it allows me I find that it keeps me company over those long hours.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because it's a long time that I'm sitting, while music is just, a song is just a minute and then it changes. And that's, it doesn't pair up nicely for a weaver who spends a lot of time, sitting and in one spot weaving. But TV shows, I love mystery or crime,
Wow.
solving crimes and not like real crime, like
right.
actual TV shows. I don't do the real crime stuff, but TV shows. Right now I'm watching Bosch, which I love.
Yep.
I don't know that
all
one,
kinds. Yeah. It's just an investigator and all kinds of TV shows.
So if one of your woven pieces came to life and could talk, what do you think it would say?
Oh my gosh, these are good questions. Well, the hope is always that these taonga, these creations, and in our culture, we do believe that they are alive, that life has been, breathed into them. And my hope is that, they are a true reflection of our culture and the mana of our people, the the pride and the prestige of our people, that it is reflected within that piece, and that how it was created, how it was brought to life, that process, is true to the values of our people. And, I don't know exactly what it would say, but just, probably just pride that these things are alive and thriving. Not just alive, but thriving.
Right. Well, give us a fun fact. What's something people would be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, man. I don't know. I have thought about this. Honestly, I don't know. What? No, nothing's coming to mind.
No well-kept secrets? Just between the three of us.
No, like, I feel like it's very hard to surprise people these days. So I don't know what people would find surprising. Maybe just that I grew up here in Hawaii. I don't know if people know that I grew up, like, my teenage years here. Which is like, yeah, people do ask me, like, why are you in Hawaii so much? And I'm like, well, I grew up here. My parents live here, and, I have siblings that live here too. So, I guess people might think, or even if I tell people I grew up here and they hear that, I still have my accent and, that I'm quite close to my culture, I think that is surprising to people. I don't know why, but maybe because people, do find it hard to remain connected to these things despite living away from home or their ancestral lands. So, that is one thing that, people are sort of surprised to know or to learn.
Well, Hone, is there anything else you want to add and share with us today before we wrap up? Or Joe, you got something you want to ask?
This has been great. No, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Oh, no, thank you guys. Is there anything I want to add? No, just, thank you for taking interest, in my work and allowing me to come on and share a little bit more about myself. I think I'm very fortunate to be able to, I guess, that people are interested in these ancient practices. They don't belong to me, but, my hope is that I'm able to share them and share the beauty within them, and that they are alive and well today, and that our own people can access them today. So I think any opportunity that I have to share, just share that story and share that narrative, that, more people will learn and see through it. So thank you. Thank you, guys.
Well, Hone, this conversation was such a gift. Thank you for sharing your story, your heart, and your artistry with us. It's been a real joy and pleasure to have you on the show and to meet you.
Thank you. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you.
And to everyone listening, go follow Hone on social media. On Instagram, I think it's Hone Bailey. Check out his weaving and share his knowledge, because this is the kind of cultural work that keeps our stories alive.
Kia ora.
Thank you, Hone.
Ngā mihi nui. Lovely to meet you guys.
Me too. In Hone Bailey's work, we see the threads of tradition and innovation woven as one. His art is not only adornment, it is connection, resilience, and the living expression of Maori. His story is a reminder that culture endures when it is cherished, shared, and passed on with love. We close this conversation with a gratitude to the Museum of Indian Arts and Culture, whose support and partnership make it possible to share stories like Hone's, stories that illuminate the beauty, diversity, and resilience of Indigenous cultures around the world. This is Beyond the Art.